So there's been a lot of talk recently about artificial intelligence or AI, not just in the marketing world, but in the mainstream media world too. A lot of the attention has been specifically related to ChatGPT, which is a trained model that you can interact with in a conversational way. You can ask it to quickly summarise a topic, debug bits of code, write you a poem or story, or even help you to prepare for a job interview by asking it to come up with a hypothetical scenario and questions related to that scenario. The big story about it though in the national media is around kids using it to essentially do their homework for them, with all schools in New York now banning the use of ChatGPT. Outside of this story though, there are a lot of industry specific news stories about it, and also a lot of YouTube videos talking about different use cases for AI across different sectors, including marketing. And that's what I'm going to make the focus of this video about. So the question I really want to try and answer is whether there are any legitimate use cases for AI in marketing and what it might mean for the workflow and processes of you marketers out there working in agribusiness. First though, let's explore ChatGPT and its features a bit more, as that will provide more context for the rest of the video. So ChatGPT, as I've just mentioned, is a trained model that interacts in a conversational way. It was built and trained by OpenAI, an AI research and deployment company based in San Francisco. Elon Musk and other prominent Silicon Valley names have been involved, and in 2019 Microsoft invested $1 billion in the company, so there's some serious clout behind it. On the screen now you'll see me type in a command to it and the resulting output. You can see how quickly it returns what you ask it and the quality of the response. In fact, just for a bit of fun, the title of this episode was AI generated, and the deer that we used for the thumbnail with the tinfoil hat on was actually AI generated too, as OpenAI has an AI image generation tool called DALL-E 2, which generates images based on your instructions. To generate the thumbnail image, I simply typed a deer with a tinfoil hat on its head, and this was one of the 4 images it generated. So now you know what ChatGPT is and you've seen it in action. Let's address the elephant in the room, AI generated content. Because the thing that's got the online publishing and SEO world in a bit of a tiz is the fact that people are auto-generating content to rank in Google. At this point, I want to share my personal view on AI generated content and tell you where I stand on it. So I hate web spam. As somebody who's worked in SEO professionally for over a decade, I've always tried to rank my clients' websites well, whilst trying to keep any content or link acquisition top quality. That's not to say that AI generated content isn't high quality. In fact, I sent 3 examples to 2 of our PR guys here who are both very experienced former journalists and therefore write for a living, and they couldn't believe how well the articles read. Okay, they were fairly generic in tone, but certainly no worse of an output than your average web copywriter. The issue is, in the context of web spam, a large number of articles can be produced in a very short space of time, and in some cases in a completely automated way. If these were to go on to rank well in search, it takes valuable SERP real estate away from publishers who were properly researching and writing content in the traditional way, which arguably provides more value to the reader. After all, an AI can never replicate somebody's personal thoughts and experiences on a particular issue. But the big question in relation to this is, can Google identify AI generated content and effectively filter it from the search results, or at least suppress it? Well, to answer this question, we firstly need to look at what Google says when it comes to AI content, which will give us an idea about whether they actually want to filter it out. So back in April 2022, John Mueller from Google said, "My suspicion is maybe the quality of content is a little bit better than the really old school tools, but for us, it's still automatically generated content. And that means for us, it's still against the webmaster guidelines. So we would consider that to be spam." So this clearly states that automatically generated content is considered a violation of Google's Webmaster Guidelines. However, Danny Sullivan from Google in November 22 said in a Twitter update in response to Google's helpful content update, "We haven't said AI content is bad. We've said pretty clearly content written primarily for search engines rather than humans is the issue. That's what we're focused on. If someone fires up 100 humans to write content just to rank, or fires up a spinner or AI, it's the same issue." He also said, "We did talk about a focus on content by people for people in our post about improvements like the helpful content system. But the nuance is really that it's unlikely some AI content is going to feel written by people without some degree of human review." My takeaway from these comments is that completely AI written content that's generated entirely by something like ChatGPT and posted in its raw form is considered web spam and would go against Google's guidelines. However, using AI to help research a topic you're writing would be okay. Now, a minute ago, I mentioned the helpful content update, which is one of many named algorithm updates that Google periodically makes and iteratively improves over time. Another one is the spam update, which uses AI itself to detect web spam. Google calls this AI spam brain. When Google last rolled out the spam update, a lot of SEO practitioners felt that it was largely targeting AI generated content. So that's two different updates potentially targeting AI content. And the question I really wanted answering was how effective Google is at detecting AI generated content and filtering it out of the search results. After all, Google's algorithm is a black box. It's the company's IP, which they guard very closely, so exact details about systems such as SpamBrain and how it works isn't easy to find. With this in mind, I started looking at other AI systems built to detect AI-generated content. I figured that Google probably has the most sophisticated system out there to detect it, so if other systems were able to do it too, I think it's pretty nailed on that Google has the problem solved. The one which I eventually chose to use was Originality AI. It's a paid tool, but one which my research suggested that it was a good bet. So I ran through it a piece of content that I generated with ChatGPT about the future of agricultural machinery, which the professional writers here said that it was a decent piece and well written. And I wanted to see if that tool could detect that it was generated with AI. You can see the results on the screen now. The tool gives you a percentage score from 0 to 100 on how likely it is to be produced by an AI. In this case, it scored 100%, which told me exactly what I needed to know. If this tool can detect it with so much confidence, then so can Google. So, with that being the case, automatically generated content, particularly for SEO purposes, should be off the table, in my opinion. But I don't think that's the end of the road for AI in marketing at all, really. I think there are a few different legitimate use cases for it. And although I can't cover all of them in this video, as we're already quite far into it, my top 5 use cases would be as follows. So the first one is helping to craft catchy titles for blog posts, videos, and email subject lines. I actually did that for this video so you could see an example of it in action. I personally think it's done a decent job of it. Number 2, as I mentioned earlier, helping with research and wording for articles. If you need a quick summary of a specific topic which forms part of a section in an article you're writing, it's an alternative to using a search engine like Google, and it can potentially avoid you needing to visit multiple web pages to find the information you're looking for. Also, if you're struggling to word something properly, you can ask ChatGPT to reword it for you to see if you prefer what the AI comes up with. On a similar theme, you can quickly check spelling, grammar, and sentence structure. Number 3, you can have the AI help you to craft great ad copy based on the spec of a product. So continuing the tractor tyre theme, you can see on the screen now a spec I've given the AI and the resulting ad copy. You wouldn't want to use it in its raw form, but I think it's a good starting point which you can then expand on and talk more about the benefits and not just the features. Number 4, helping to create the outline of an ebook. So This might be a lead magnet that you're running for a marketing campaign. And it's quite a generic example, I'm sure, but I asked it to come up with something just about tractors, but you could get more specific and it would serve as a great starting point to build on. And the last one I'm going to share here is to create landing page copy, which uses well-known conversion-focused principles. So as you can see in the example here, I asked ChatGPT to write some landing page copy using the ADA model. Again, I wouldn't use it in its raw form, and it's not perfect by any means, but it's a good starting point and it can help to overcome the dreaded writer's block. So there you have it, 5 legitimate use cases, and I'm sure there'll be many more that others are already using and that we'll discover here as we do more testing with it. The main takeaway for me is that it's a great aid, but it's not a substitute for the knowledge and experience marketers have been building for years. Yes, use it to help with your work, as I feel it can be a great time saver, but there is a line, and a human touch I feel is needed in all areas when using it. It's not a good thing for the internet to become littered with AI generated content. As we found earlier, it's unlikely to rank anywhere, unless in the future Google changes its stance on automated content that's built from an AI. So that's it, quite an in-depth and long video this time, but I hope you found it interesting, and we'll see you again for another edition of Agri Marketing Mastery. Take care until then.